everyone, welcome back to Whodunit. Today, once again, we're diving into the heartbreaking story of a beautiful young college student from Plainfield, Illinois. So let's uncover this story together. Alicia Bramfield was 21 years old, standing at the threshold of the brightest days of her life. She was just months away from finishing her degree in criminology at Western Illinois University. Back home in Illinois, she had carefully prepared a small room for her unborn daughter, Ava Lucille. Tiny clothes folded neatly, bottles lined up a crib waiting by the window. A young mother-to-be single, but determined, her eyes lit with faith in a future she was eager to embrace. But within that picture of hope, a crack had already begun to spread. Alicia worked under a man, 15 years older, Brian Cooper, a supervisor who masked his obsession and need for control behind the role of a helpful manager. What seemed like guidance soon became a shadow pressing in on every corner of her life. On the morning of August 18th, 2012, Alicia left Plainfield, Illinois, with Cooper for a short trip to Door County, Wisconsin. She believed she would be back with her family the very next day, ready to continue her plans for school, for work, and for motherhood. But by dawn on August 19th, her body would be discovered in a quiet hotel room by the water. A young woman carrying a child, silenced forever. What happened in those final hours? How did a man who once appeared to be just a boss transform into a killer? And why did the justice system, at least at first, seem powerless in the face of such obvious evil? The story you're about to hear is not only about murder. It is a mirror reflecting the darker side of power, the silence of the institutions, and the unending grief of a family robbed of its light. Alicia Bramfield was born on August 28, 1990, in Joliet, Illinois. She was one of 5 children in the Bramfield family, a working-class household built on love and resilience. From an early age, Alicia showed an independent spirit. Whenever she faced trouble, she preferred to solve it herself rather than burden her parents. That self-reliance became her defining trait, shaping her into a strong young woman who knew how to stand firm against challenges. As she grew older, Alicia enrolled at Western Illinois University, where she pursued criminology. This choice wasn't random. She often expressed a fascination with understanding human darkness, with asking why people commit crimes and how justice might truly be served. She dreamed of working in forensic psychology, using her mind and compassion to confront society's hidden truths. Outside of school, Alicia worked at the Home Depot Garden Center. She started as a teenager, spending nearly 6 years there, arranging flowers, designing displays, and helping customers. For Alicia, the job wasn't just a paycheck. She loved flowers, the way a bouquet could brighten a stranger's day, the way she could create beauty with her hands. Colleagues recalled how she always smiled while working with arrangements, as though she was weaving a little hope into every stem and petal. Life, however, was not without hardship. During college, Alicia entered a relationship. When she became pregnant, her partner refused responsibility and walked away. The heartbreak could have crushed her, but Alicia chose a different path. She decided to raise the child on her own. She picked the name Ava Lucille for her unborn daughter, a name soft, luminous, and filled with promise. By the summer of 2012, Alicia was about 6.5 months pregnant. She juggled final exams with shopping trips for baby supplies, bottles, diapers, tiny outfits. In her bedroom, she painted walls, set up a crib, and hung light curtains. Each detail reflected a mother's love, poured into preparations for a life she had yet to hold. She even mapped out a plan: take maternity leave for 2 months, then return part-time to Home Depot. And once her degree was completed, transition into a career in her chosen field. Friends and family saw in her a young woman glowing with energy and optimism. Yes, she knew being a single mother would be difficult, financial strain, emotional weight, but Alicia radiated determination. Many described her gaze as one that always looked forward, as though tomorrow held only light. Yet while she was building dreams of motherhood, another story was unfolding in the shadows. Brian Cooper, a 36-year-old regional manager at Home Depot, had been part of Alicia's work life for years. At first, he seemed helpful, arranging her schedule around classes. But slowly, his behavior shifted. He crossed lines, blurring professional boundaries with personal advance, and began exerting a disturbing kind of control. For Alicia, the job was essential. As a soon-to-be single mother, every dollar mattered. Stability mattered. And so she chose patience. She kept interactions polite, avoided confrontation, and told herself she only needed to endure a little longer until maternity leave. But Cooper wasn't a man who respected silence. Her attempts to minimize conflict only fueled his obsession. At 21, Alicia should have been living through her most beautiful chapter, stepping into adulthood, preparing to welcome her daughter, and reaching toward her career dreams. Instead, her future collided with the harshest reality, a reality where the person who should have been merely a boss transformed into a looming threat, a man whose obsession would soon shatter everything. At first, Brian Cooper's behavior could be mistaken for excessive friendliness. He adjusted Alicia's shifts occasionally, offered her help in the warehouse, and made comments that might have seemed like compliments. But over time, the pattern grew darker. Cooper monitored her closely, watching which male co-workers she spoke with, and if he saw her chatting, he sometimes cut her lunch break short, claiming it interfered with work. In secluded corners like the warehouse, he tried to kiss her without consent. Alicia recognized that this was no longer workplace courtesy. She repeatedly rejected his advances, making it clear that theirs was a professional relationship only. But Cooper was the type who couldn't accept no. Each rejection fueled his anger. Soon, his frustrations became public. He began criticizing Alicia in front of customers, nitpicking the way she arranged flowers, humiliating her over trivial details. On more than one occasion, he erupted in rage, throwing items onto the floor. Determined to protect herself, Alicia took careful steps. She documented each incident, dates, times, specific threats, and inappropriate behavior. With this record, she filed a formal complaint with Home Depot management. Her account was thorough, difficult to dismiss. Harassment, verbal abuse, intimidation, and unwanted physical advances. Yet the company's response was shockingly weak. Rather than discipline, Cooper suspend him or transfer him. They merely required him to enroll in an anger management class, with no follow-up to confirm completion. No protection for Alicia, no consequences for him. It was a hollow gesture signaling that management preferred to look the other way. And Alicia wasn't alone. Investigators would later learn that several female employees had endured similar treatment under Cooper. The company knew this, but systemic inaction emboldened him. For Cooper, the lack of accountability became a kind of shield. He grew convinced he was untouchable, immune to consequences. Meanwhile, Alicia found herself trapped in an agonizing dilemma. Quitting meant losing her income, and as a soon-to-be single mother, that wasn't an option. She confided in her family, "I need to keep this job." But those words, meant as determination, also carried a silent weight. Her survival and her daughters depended on enduring this toxic environment. Day after day, the pressure mounted. Cooper manipulated her work schedule, often interfering with her prenatal medical appointments. Alicia had to postpone or cancel crucial checkups, sacrificing her health for stability. Occasionally, she opened up to her mother Sherry about the stress. But most of the time she chose silence. She believed if she could just endure 2 more months until maternity leave, she and Ava would be safe. But reality was harsher. Each day of endurance was another day. Cooper's obsession escalated. His harassment was no longer about inappropriate words, it was about power control and possession. To him, Alicia wasn't a colleague or a young mother-to-be. She was an object he believed he had a right to, and the company's indifference only fed the delusion. No one, least of all Alicia, realized that those unanswered complaints were more than cries for help. They were warnings of a looming tragedy. Ignored, dismissed, left to rot in a file cabinet, they became the silent prelude to a crime that would soon end 2 lives. By August of 2012, Alicia Bramfield was in her final trimester of pregnancy. She was exhausted, but holding on, balancing her studies and work while preparing for the arrival of her daughter. That was when Brian Cooper, the 36-year-old manager who had harassed her for years, forced yet another ultimatum. He invited Alicia to his sister's wedding in Door County, Wisconsin, about a 6-hour drive from Plainfield, Illinois. Alicia declined at first, citing her health and personal commitments. But Cooper turned the invitation into a threat. If she refused, he warned he would cut her hours or fire her. For Alicia, refusing wasn't simple. She needed the job. Backed into a corner, she agreed, but only on the condition that Cooper reserve a separate hotel room. On the morning of August 18, 2012, the two left Illinois and drove north to the Sand Bay Beach Resort in Door County. When they arrived, Alicia was stunned. Cooper had booked only one room with a double bed. He brushed it off as a mix-up, but she immediately texted her mother, Sherry, saying she felt deceived and unwelcome. Cooper pleaded with her to stay, promising it would be just one night, that his family would be present, and there was nothing to fear. Reluctantly, Alicia chose not to cause a scene on the wedding day. The wedding itself passed without incident. Cooper walked his sister down the aisle, while Alicia kept her distance, polite but uneasy. That evening during the reception, Cooper drank heavily. Alicia texted her mother again, assuring her she would return home the next day. Just one more night. Tomorrow I'll be back. Those words carried both resignation and hope. But in the early hours of August 19th, inside the hotel room, the fragile balance collapsed. Cooper, intoxicated and emboldened, pressed Alicia once more to enter a romantic relationship. Alicia was resolute. She told him plainly that after everything he had done, not only could there be no romance, there could be no friendship either. For Cooper, those words shattered the fantasy he had nurtured for years. Rage overtook him. He lunged at Alicia and wrapped his hands around her throat. She struggled desperately, scratching, gasping, fighting for breath. Bruises and claw marks later testified to her attempt to resist his, but his grip only tightened. Forensic experts later determined the strangulation lasted about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, long enough to stop, long enough to reconsider. But he did not. Alicia and the unborn child she carried were gone. And then his depravity deepened. After she lay lifeless, Cooper stripped her clothing. He later admitted he had long fantasized about seeing her this way. In a twisted act of possession, he sexually assaulted her body. Only after did the reality of what he had done sink in. Panic set in. He tried half-heartedly to take his own life. He picked up a knife but hesitated. He filled a bathtub, but could not go through with it. He stumbled to the beach intending to drown himself, but again faltered. Soaked and trembling, he finally walked to a nearby gas station, borrowed a phone, and called 911. In a broken voice, he confessed, "I killed my coworker." When investigators entered the hotel room at Sand Bay Beach Resort, they found a chilling scene. Alicia Bramfield lay lifeless on the floor, her body marked with bruises and scratches that spoke of a desperate struggle. Around the room, overturned items showed how fiercely she had fought to survive. The autopsy confirmed what was already obvious. She died from strangulation, a violent act that lasted several minutes. And with her death, her unborn daughter, Ava Lucille, also lost her life. Meanwhile, Brian Cooper sat in an interrogation room. He confessed in detail how Alicia's rejection enraged him, how he wrapped his hands around her throat, and what he did afterward to her body. His words were recorded, chilling in their clarity. But the evidence did not stop there. Detectives uncovered hidden cameras that Cooper had installed both in his own home and even in the hotel bathroom, where he secretly recorded Alicia. His obsession was long-standing, calculated, and deeply disturbing. It seemed the case was airtight. Yet when Cooper went to trial in 2013, his defense attorneys built their case around a single argument: intoxication. They claimed he had been so drunk at his sister's wedding and afterward that he could not fully comprehend his actions. Expert witnesses were brought in to describe how alcohol impairs judgment. Incredibly, 2 jurors accepted this reasoning. The result, a hung jury. The judge declared a mistrial. For Alicia's family, this was unbearable. Her mother, Sherry, sat through every hearing listening to a man who admitted to killing her daughter escape justice because of a legal loophole. To her, it was not only a personal betrayal, but a systemic failure. How could voluntary drunkenness be used as an excuse for murder? Sherry refused to stay silent. She launched a campaign to change the law. She gathered signatures through petitions, wrote letters to state and federal officials, and spoke publicly about Alicia's story. Her mission was clear: to ensure no other family would endure the same injustice. Her persistence paid off. In the spring of 2014, Wisconsin passed a groundbreaking law. Voluntary intoxication could no longer be used as a criminal defense. The law was directly inspired by Alicia's case. Over time, more than 31 states followed suit, adopting similar reforms. That same year, Cooper faced a second trial. This time, prosecutors were ready. They emphasized that Cooper had demonstrated full awareness of his actions. He described the murder in detail. He attempted to cover the body. He even tried to kill himself before calling 911. These were not the actions of a man incapable of understanding consequences. Jurors were shown digital evidence, including the hidden recordings, and heard testimony from Cooper's co-workers who described years of harassment. Cooper's manipulation of Alicia's schedule, his public humiliation of her, and his obsessive stalking painted a picture of control and not drunken confusion. In July of 2014, the verdict was delivered. Brian Cooper was found guilty and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, 1 for Alicia and 1 for her unborn child, Ava. The ruling closed a legal chapter, but for Sherry and her family, the grief remained unhealed. Justice had finally been served, but it could never restore what was lost. What it did achieve, however, was something larger: a shift in the law, born from tragedy, ensuring that future offenders could not hide behind alcohol as a shield. When the judge pronounced 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, the courtroom exhaled in relief. For prosecutors and investigators, it was a victory for justice. But for Alicia's family, especially her mother Sherry, it was a hollow victory. No sentence could bring Alicia back. No law could breathe life into Ava Lucille, the granddaughter she would never hold. In later interviews, Sherry voiced the truth that lingered like an open wound. He may have been sentenced, but for us, the pain will never end. That statement echoed far beyond her family. It was a reminder that justice, while necessary, cannot erase grief. Courts can punish the guilty, but they cannot heal the living. And yet in her grief, Sherry found the strength to act not only for Alicia, but for countless other women whose cries for help had been ignored. The story of Alicia is not just one of violence. It is a reflection of something darker, that evil is not only in the hands of the murderer, but also in the silence of the institutions that fail to intervene. If Home Depot had acted decisively when Alicia filed her complaints, perhaps her life and Ava's could have been spared. Today, Alicia's law stands as a painful but powerful legacy. It ensures that voluntary intoxication will never again be used as an excuse to escape responsibility. It reminds us that justice cannot be blurred by alcohol or undermined by systemic negligence. For us, those who hear Alicia's story, what lingers is not only sorrow, but a question: what role can we play in workplaces and families and society to make sure that no plea for help is ever ignored again? If you wish to continue exploring true stories like this, tales of loss, justice, and lessons carved from tragedy, stay with this channel, because sometimes remembering is the only way we can honor the voices of those who are gone and transform memory into strength for change.